Nothing was worse.
Oh, never.
Good morning. Today is January 23rd, 2020. We're here for a town board work session. Let's stand for the pledge. Tim, can you take the lead, please? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving forward, we start today's work session with discussion on our audit review. Would you come forward, please? Bill, also? Is Bill here? Good morning.
I think we're gonna have some feedback here. Larry, there's a little feedback up here.
Good morning.
Sure. More reading.
Let's not start to read this.
Light reading.
Yeah, we have one for the spare.
Okay.
Okay, I'm Chris Reno, I'm one of the 6 partners at Cullen and Danowski. We're an external audit firm primarily. 2/3 of our practice is government. We handle towns, villages, fire districts, school districts, and the like. I'm here with Principal Mike Leone and our Supervisor Raul Perez. And we're all on the engagement together, along with some staffing.
You gotta be louder.
Sorry, staffing, yeah, I know, talk to the table. We have staff,
I'm not
usually
allowed enough.
2 seniors and 2 staff, also on board with doing the audit. And we issue 3 reports. We have a bound financial statement, which is financial activity. Our job is to render an opinion on the financial statements, to provide reasonable assurance they're relatively free of material misstatements. There are also 2 letters. One has a bold print on it. What that is a communication to the board, if we've had any difficulties with the audit, which we did not, and proposed journal entries. So attached are adjusting journal entries that we proposed. There was-
Wait, can you go back over what you just said?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
What, I didn't catch it.
Oh, no.
What is this one?
It's a report to the board as
Mhm.
far as that audit, and if we ran into any difficulties, what assumptions
okay.
we've done.
Yeah, so as part of our audit, we're required to do 2 communications. One being a planning communication with the audit committee prior to the audit, and then
Mhm.
one on the results. This one is called the AUC 260, and it's a communication with the board and the audit committee on the results of the audit, and if there's any particular findings, which there were none.
Okay,
Right.
Okay?
you said that fast, right?
Sorry, I'll slow down. So, anyway, so there's 1 page of journal entries, which is great. We have some places that we're dealing with, we got like 70 journal entries, so the books are pretty clean here. Yeah, we just find a couple things.
Can you
to
say that
correct.
again? The books are?
Pretty clean here.
Okay.
Yes.
That's good
Which-
to hear.
Which I'm going to stress, because there's another report out there, he said AUC 260, there's another letter that could be issued called an AU 265.
Okay.
That's a report on significant deficiencies and material weaknesses. That's where things are, you know,
Did some
closing the
work.
books, inadequate capital asset records, things like that. And they have to be disclosed in a separate letter and usually become part of the financial statements as well. 2 years ago, you used to have significant deficiencies here because you had an old computer program and some other things. The year before we came on board, and
We've been checking off the list for the
Right.
last 10 years as to internal, the audits
Right.
and what we could afford to do on any particular year. So we would budget small amounts every year until we could get caught up and get rid of all of those deficiencies in the audit.
Right, so as of last year, this first year, you didn't have any significant deficiencies.
Well, that's good
So
to know.
Very good.
Things are progressing and getting really
So
good.
we're doing something right.
Yeah.
Over the course of a few
Absolutely.
years.
Well, this
Right,
is-
yeah,
So this
The last
isn't-
couple
it's a
of years.
process.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
This is 2018's audit.
Yes, 2018.
correct.
Right,
yeah.
so not last year, but 2018.
Yeah, which will
Okay.
commence shortly. So, and then there's a management letter, which I'll get into towards the end, because we have a handout that just talks about the audit process. So, here, help myself. And then, so we'll go through this all together. You can handle that. basically, we just start out with our audit team, you know, it's the three of us right here. And like I said, we have some audit staff, and then we'll
Yeah.
segue into.
You want the Caitlin too?
I got it.
What a great present.
Come on, we come with gifts.
Read that with
So I mentioned
popcorn.
that we had the staff.
That's in place.
Okay.
Yeah, which is us, and so you wanna talk about?
Yeah, sure.
the
So I'll
next
take you
section?
through the rest of this. This is a summary presentation. Obviously, the financial statement is much more involved. It's 77 pages. We went through it with the audit committee in much more detail and with management. Chris spoke about the team. What I do want to mention is typically this size engagement for a town, in 2018, you had over a townwide budget of over 95 million. So that typically takes, we'll have about 4 staff, a principal or a manager, and a partner on the engagement, which is probably close to 1,200 hours. So it's a pretty comprehensive external audit. Just wanted to give you some background on that. Moving to page 4 within the document, I want to talk a little bit about the auditor's responsibilities. I think Chris alluded to some of that, but we conduct our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, and those standards require that we perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free of any material misstatement. In addition to the generally accepted auditing standards, we also have to conduct the audit in accordance with government auditing standards, since the town is a government. That requires that we look for compliance with laws and regulations, things like the tax levy, the use of reserves, the spending of reserves, and if we have any findings on that, we would have to report that to you. Chris mentioned the separate document that we had, the AUC 260. That's part of the communications that we have with you. As I mentioned, there's 2 communications. One is the planning prior to or during when the audit starts, and then the one is the results, which we're doing right now. And as Chris mentioned, that there was no significant or material weaknesses which we would be required to report to you. There is a management letter that has been highly improved. Chris is going to cover that with you at the end, and then Raul's going to cover some financial highlights. I'll take you through page 5 now. Other information regarding the audit. What's important to note is an audit is, as comprehensive as it is, it's a sampling of transactions. We have to do a risk assessment on the significant areas within the town. We then address those significant areas. One way is through maybe a test of controls, or another way would be through substantive testing, meaning looking at invoices and we set materiality. So this kind of just lets you know that we don't test every transaction, but we do a sampling of transactions. We may do that based on an interval basis. We may do that haphazardly, but it's pretty comprehensive work. So if you were to look at the financial statement, you'll see all these line items on there that are pretty material. We have to address them in one way or another so that we can opine upon the financial statements. And as Chris mentioned, did you mention that we issued an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that you can render?
Oh, good to hear also.
Okay. One of the things that's also important to note is, as part of our audit, we did some test of controls that relate to various different departments. We also did test of controls on the payroll. We relied on the test of controls for disbursements in the prior year. Our professional standards allow us to do that as long as there are no findings in the prior year. So these are just important aspects to understand about an audit. That covers page 5. Page 6 is pretty comprehensive. This is the town's responsibility. The town has a lot of responsibilities when it comes to the audit. They are responsible for the financial statements. They're responsible for any supplementary information that's included within the financial statements and the disclosures and the notes to the financial statement. They're also responsible to oversee any non-attest functions that we do that are performed. During this audit, we did assist with some of the notes to the financial statement and provided some assistance on the GASB conversion. That doesn't impair our independence, and that's clear. That's in the engagement letter, and that's discussed with management. The town is also responsible for selecting the appropriate application of accounting policies and any new GASB pronouncements. In this particular year, we had the implementation of GASB 75, which relates to the post-employment benefits. So that was a significant thing, and that was pretty time-consuming from an audit perspective, and Caitlin did a great job with that. Also, as I mentioned earlier, that we have to ensure that there's compliance with laws and regulations, and the town is responsible for making sure that that happens. In addition to that, we do conduct some interviews with respect to fraud. We are required to have that conversation with the town, so we perform certain inquiries. We meet with key level people, we have discussions with them, we do high-level analytical procedures to see if anything kicks out. We're happy to report that we didn't come across any of that, but it's important to know that we're having that discussion. So I'll meet with, I met with the supervisor, I met with the town attorney, met with Caitlin, and I met with Bill. And then we also met with other individuals within the other departments to get an understanding of their process and if they had any concerns. Page 7, which I just spoke about a little bit, has to do with the fraud consideration. So there's 3 phases that we really do. We have to identify any fraud risks, which we do through that process that I just spoke about, which is inquiries, analytical procedures. Then we have to consider the effects of that. So when we meet with people, we have to ask, are there any incentives, any pressures? Does the board put any pressure on you? Does management does supervisor put any pressure on anyone to see? Because that would alert us to look for a particular area. And then we have to, somehow in our audit program, we have to have a response to that. So if you look in the bottom section, we would address some of these things like management's override. If there's not a lot of controls and management can just make a decision on something without getting approval, that's something that we would look at and do more testing on. And then we also look at the various different controls. An important thing to note about our internal audit is the external audit is that we do not test or give an opinion on the internal controls. However, we do look at the internal controls, and if there's any issues or any areas for improvement, we'll issue what is known as a management letter. Okay. With that, we're going to move over to the financial statement highlights. Again, this is a very quick summary review of this because we went through this with the audit committee. Raul's going to cover this in some brief detail, and then after that, Chris will go through some of the finding and recommendations that related to the management letter, and you'll see the improvement there.
Yeah, this kind of will tell you which sections are where within the financial statement, and Raul will just
Right,
discuss it.
it's a very cumbersome document, which I'm sure. So we break it out in different sections. The first section on page 2 would be our audit opinion and auditor's report. On page 2,
That's where we
Okay.
give the unmodified opinion.
right, on page 3 on the top, you'll see the opinions, and that's where we discuss our unmodified opinion, which is, again, they talked about the highest insurance level we can provide as an internal audit. The second section. Next page. I think you're, keep going.
No, these 3 are.
The first 3 are the
Yeah, so
reports.
there's our opinion.
Okay.
And then when we get to the 2 pages, we get to the next section.
Right,
Which
this
is the management discussion analysis.
So what's important to note about that, if there was an exception as far as a standard that wasn't met or something that we could not audit, we would have to issue what is known as a qualified opinion, meaning that, and we would put that exception within that report. This is an unmodified opinion, meaning that we were comfortable with the financial statements and the reasonableness of the numbers and the disclosures within the financial statements.
Good.
Right, the next section would be the management's discussion and analysis, which is management's review of,
Speak up a
oh,
little bit.
sorry. The next section is the management discussion and analysis section. This identifies key financial highlights within the document, as well as year-over-year comparisons with certain data within different governmental funds and then the primary full accrual basis of accounting funds. On page 20, we get into the actual financial statements themselves. Page 20 and 21 are the town's consolidated financial statements. So all the funds are rolled up into this, and this is based on a full accrual basis of accounting, which means this also includes your long-term assets, such as fixed assets, known as capital assets, as well as your long-term liabilities, bonds, compensation absences liabilities, GASB 75, which is your OPEB, other post-employment benefits, as well as your pensions for police and for employees within the district. Within this, on page 20, we noted that the deferred outflows and the assets exceeded the liabilities and deferred inflows by $88 million, which is your net position of the total primary government. The overall net position increased by about $4 million. The increase was primarily due to property tax increase, as well as state aid. You received about $2 million between those two, is an increase over the prior year. As well as interest income because of the interest rates increased in the banks. You guys were able to make more money off the money held within the banks, and your charges for services also went up. So the amount of charges that you did for town facilities and such went up over in 2018, which increased. Overall expenses remain relatively flat. You only increased your expenses by about $300,000. So your expense management was very well that year.
So it was a good final budget that Sean Walter put forward,
Yeah,
right?
very good.
Implemented well.
Yes. On page 22 and 24 is your fund statements, and this is done on a modified accrual basis of accounting. So all that long-term liabilities and long-term assets aren't factored into these. And this is based on would you vote on for your budget, for your general fund. This is basically what you really want to pay attention to mostly, because this is your year over year. This is kind of going to show your actual activities for the year.
Yeah, these are like the real funds by fund, and this is what gets reported to the comptroller's office in something known as an annual update document, which is technically your tax return, we'll say. So that gets sent to, and that's what these numbers are. The other ones that Raul just talked about is a consolidation of all that, and it's treated more like a corporation, so there wouldn't be an expenditure for a bond principal payment. It'd just be a reduction of a liability, more like a corporate balance sheet. So these are more of the real numbers, and this is what like Moody's would hone in on when they're looking at, you know, your ratings and things
Yeah,
like
so
that.
this is more the short-term perspective and measured against your budget.
Right.
So that's what you really, that's an area that, obviously the town would be concerned with, so.
Overall, on page 26 through 28 is your proprietary funds, which are your sewer and your water funds. And the increase overall between the two was about $487,000. Water went up about $1.3 million, but sewer had a loss of $788,000, probably due to a lot of extra work in the facilities for that year.
And non-payment by the county.
On page 29,
About the same figure.
It is the
summary.
same figure.
I know it is.
Page 29 is a summary of your fiduciary funds. What makes up that is primarily taxes collected on behalf of other governments, such as school districts, that you have not remitted yet at the end of the year. Also, our payroll tax deductions that have not been remitted to the state and federal government, as well as any security deposits and bids you've received for bids on various projects within the town. And then you go into page 30 through 68 are the notes, which goes over the basic significant accounting policies that the town has, as well as a detailed description of certain account balances, major account balances within the town's financial statements. To be noted on page 62, because there was a new accounting standards, GASB number 75, we had to do a prior period adjustment and add an additional $59 million of additional liabilities for your other post-employment benefits. Other post-employment benefits is the town's required contractual obligations to provide health insurance benefits to retirees. And an actuary comes in every year and evaluates the information and projects out how much that is. GASB 45, which originally was the town's accounting standards, only required you to recognize 1/30th each year over the course of 30 years of that liability. They've since changed their minds in GASB 75, and they told you you have to recognize everything up front. So this is us placing the entire liability back on the balance sheet.
Yeah, so this is government throughout, not
Yes.
specific to the town.
Yeah, this is the long-term perspective.
Then after that, we go into required supplementary information tables. The major ones are your budget to actual information, which starts on page 69. And it goes over the major funds that the town has: general fund, highway, debt service, community preservation. So you can see budget, final budget, actual expenditures and revenues that came in, and then the variances between the different accounts. Next would be the schedule of town's proportionate share of net pension liability. This is your GASB 68, your pension liabilities for your police and for your employees here at the town. It's calculated with two different tables. First table is your overall liability that you're required to have on the books, and it gives a historical basis to see the different liability percentages that the town is owed within this pension fund, the different sections for police retirement and for the employees' retirement. The second table goes over the town's contribution over the course of 10 years. You can see the fluctuation between the different rates each year that you're required to contribute to the pension fund. On page 75 would be your GASB 75 required table, which just goes over the changes in the OPEB actuarial liability from 2008, the beginning, and what affected the change in the final balance, which was $128 million. That's a big number.
What's the acronym, OPEB?
Other post-employment benefits.
Which is the health insurance.
And finally, supplementary information you have here is your non-major governmental funds. If you notice on page 22 and 24 of the financial statements, you have a summary column that says non-major funds, which is just one column. This table actually identifies what makes up that column, which is
Gives you the
several
detail.
different funds.
Okay, perfect.
And that's basically the financial statements.
Okay.
And then the last piece is the management letter, which we summarize the highlights here. And what I want to point out is basically when we got here to do the last year's audit, the management letter was sizable. And we had to address 18 comments, and we had 3 additionals when we did this last year. They started putting procedures into place. This year, we had 10 comments to comment about, and 5 have been addressed since we last met
Okay.
prior audit. So we're heading in the right direction, it's great. Management letter that we issued the year before was 16 pages. I think this one was 6.
Yeah, and this is dated December 4th,
Mhm.
and to the supervisor and the town board, but I don't recall getting a copy of this. Did you?
This was just sent in draft to Bill when we, back then.
Okay, so the date is December
that- that's-
4th is
that's-
actually today.
That's the date of our field work, December 4th. When we're done with the audit, and we have everything drafted, that's the date we use for our report, not today's date. So December 4th.
Is when the field
The
work.
last day of their field work, that they were actually in town doing field work.
Yeah, or.
And then you
putting together-
compile all the information
Right.
and then come up with the full audit.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
at this point, we already had it, it's good, we started, wrapping things up in October, November. Then there's back and forths with comments, with administration as far as, the wording of what's in the financial, the wording of the management letter.
I was just confused because it's dated December 4th and it's to the supervisor and town board and I haven't seen it until today.
Yeah, it's an official document, and our standards require that we use a date that's prior to when we actually meet. But they were drafts distributed, so.
Yeah, so
I'm
what
not
the-
too
what the
sure
date-
we're
what-
privy to it
Yeah,
before that.
What the
Right.
date
Oh.
represents
Right,
is,
that's what he's saying.
Yeah,
that-
we're
yeah.
not privy to it until it gets presented.
Well, it's presented to the audit committee, it's presented to management and the
Right.
audit
I
committee.
met with Jack
And there could be,
couple of weeks
of course,
ago.
there could be a lag, but we still have a requirement to meet with you. But what that date really represents is a substantial completion of our audit work and the review of all that work, so that we're comfortable with the financial statements, and that occurred.
The issue, yeah.
And that's considered the issue date from our perspective, based on our standards. At that point in time, we then give that information over to management, or meet with the audit committee, convey the results to them, and then what happens in the process at the town at that point in time, that's
Right.
completely up to the town.
Yeah, so.
So, but it's not uncommon to have a little bit of a lag with something like that.
But the idea that information was withheld from us is a non-issue.
Yeah, I don't know if it was withheld or not. We did send that.
I'm not saying that, I'm
draft.
just saying this letter is dated December 4th to the supervisor and town board and I haven't seen it until today. That's all.
Well, when we do next year's audit, when we set the drafts up, we have no problem sending it to you directly.
Of course, we
It's
could
not getting
change,
forwarded.
that protocol,
Right.
with no problem. If we wanna include, the board on the email,
Yeah.
that's completely
Just
up.
provide your email address
Yeah,
to
our
us.
communication.
When we send the drafts out, we'll send them to you as well.
Yeah.
That's.
Again, so just
All our
as a
addresses are online.
Yeah, just as a reminder, so when we're complete with our work, we still have to send the draft to the town. The town has to look over that draft, but that's, pencils are down on our end if they have some comments about it, so,
Yeah.
again, that could be a lag. So December 4th is when we're done, we've reviewed everything, we're saying,
We got it.
here's your draft
Yeah.
financial.
Okay.
If
We
you have
have
some
it.
questions about it, by all
Some-
means, come back to it, we'll straighten it out.
Sometimes there's a comment and, you know,
Yeah.
we'll send it back to them and say, no, this has been addressed. Go talk to this guy, and then, oh, okay, and then make the modification, so. you know,
Okay.
So we like them to see it first to make sure that we're not sending you bad information. But, you know, the drafts were sent out probably 2 weeks ago, I wanna say.
All right,
All
moving
But
forward.
Anyway, so the point is that things are looking up. There was no new comments this year, so it's just addressing 10 from the prior management letter. Like I said, 5 are already gone because they've been corrected, and I know the other ones are in process. There's nothing there that says no. You know, and like the one on the fund balance policy, you have this policy where you want to retain 15% of your next year's budget, and you can slowly progress it towards that. I've done an analysis, like 2 years ago, your unassigned fund balance was like 2.2 million, like 3 years prior, then it jumped up to 2.6, 2.9, and now it's up to 4.6. So you're heading in the right direction. That magic number's around 700,000 stated in the management letter. So we see a trend, it's going the right way.
Positive
Yeah, so
trend.
like you said, some of the stuff is a process and takes time, so.
All good stuff that Moody's likes to see.
So,
Larry, there's a lot of feedback up here.
so, I would say it's a clean audit, other than that, you know.
That's our presentation, but what I would like to add is I do want to thank Bill, Caitlin, and the entire town for the cooperation. This, as I mentioned earlier, this is a big undertaking. Any external audit requires a lot of hours, requires a lot of dedication, and we receive their undivided attention. It's a process, as I mentioned, could exceed 1,200 hours for this type of, 1,200 person hours. So we're very appreciative of that. We want to thank that, and also thank the board and the rest of the town for engaging us.
Thank you.
Great to see we're going in the right direction.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you very
effort.
much. Pleasure.
Welcome,
Enjoy
Pam.
your day.
Presentation.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
This is yours?
Thank you.
Enjoy your birthday.
You know what happened, mine fell apart.
It's
We
been-
sent
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess,
that happens.
I'm not sure where it's only for, if
No,
it's
not on
possible.
No, there's extra copies over there.
Oh,
too.
okay, I didn't know that, okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, where are we now?
Engineering department
Okay.
and.
Next up for discussion is engineering. Drew, can you come up?
And representatives from Comcast, right? Yeah. You guys are coming up,
Peconic
right?
Bay Estuary? And Drew?
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm the director of the Peconic Estuary Program.
Oh, great.
Welcome. I'm Joyce Novak. How
Joyce,
is everybody
nice to
today?
meet you.
How are
Very good. Good to
Um,
see you.
For those of you who aren't aware or new, this is Sarah Schaefer, our
Hi,
program
Sarah.
coordinator. And we're the National Estuary Program on the east end of Long Island. We are not a nonprofit. We are federally funded and funded by state and local agencies. And our main mission is to
Have a seat.
serve as a facilitator.
Run the presentation.
She's gonna give a presentation in 2 seconds. I'm just gonna briefly introduce what we do. Run as a facilitator for the East End towns and Brookhaven, to coordinate efforts, with relation to water quality, both groundwater and surface water. And as we all know, out here, there's a great crossover between what's ecological and what's human health and drinking water. So, we have a large stake in all of that. And another thing that we focus on is stormwater management as well, which is what this project is about. And climate change. We're rolling out a critical lands protection strategy that we've done for the East End towns to highlight parcels of land for priority acquisition or protection as part of a resiliency plan for the future. I have a list of sort of our accomplishments to give you a better idea. You don't have to read this now. Of what we do.
Did you send one to each of us?
I can email it,
No,
absolutely.
no, I thought I already received this.
No, I
Okay.
sent out a letter
Okay.
to all board members in the East End and all supervisors, just to sort of say Happy New Year
Oh, okay.
with our most recent newsletter
Yes.
to put us really on everybody's radar, if we weren't already on your radar. But so Sarah's gonna talk about this particular project on Meeting House Creek, which is a wetland restoration project, but for the purposes of stormwater management. And so I will turn it over to Sarah.
Yes, okay.
And I just have a map that goes along with the presentation. Wonderful.
All right. Is this on?
Drew.
Is there enough
for everybody?
Um,
I don't need one if I'll get later.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, as Joyce said, my name is Sarah Schaefer. I am the program coordinator for the Peconic Estuary Program. And I wanted to thank you all again for having us on this agenda today to speak about the Meeting House Creek Main Road Wetland Construction Project that we are proposing to work with the town on. So this project would be to construct a 5.6 acre constructed wetland on the town property on Main Road in Riverhead on the headwaters of Meeting House Creek. So just a background on the project, the existing property is a 2.61 acre Town of Riverhead owned property, which is the headwaters of Meeting House Creek. To the east is the, the cider farm.
Yes.
To the west is a cemetery, and to the south is the Crescent Duck Farm. So the Meeting House Creek watershed is has been identified as an impaired water body in the New York State Impaired Water Bodies list. It's been impaired due to agricultural runoff, stormwater runoff, and there has been low dissolved oxygen noted in the waters and high nutrients noted in those waters. So back in 2006, the Peconic Estuary Program paid for a plan to be developed to identify areas along Meeting House Creek that were issues, and then try to come up with a plan on how we could address those issues. So from that plan, the town of Riverhead nominated a specific piece of that plan to be part of our habitat restoration plan. So in 2017, we put out an RFP to develop a conceptual design for what should be done in this specific area to improve the habitat and also reduce the impacts of stormwater in that area. So this is a aerial view of the site in question here. So it's a 2.6 acre parcel, and the upland area consists of about 1.6 acres, and then there's a freshwater wetland of about 1 acre. So we did a site investigation along with Land Use Ecological Services to get a better idea of the existing conditions in the area and also come up with a plan on what we could do to improve the habitat and improve the treatment of stormwater running into this area. And as I showed in this slide, the blue area that's outlined, that's the stormwater watershed that actually flows into Meeting House Creek, and the site in question is the area indicated by that white line there. And then you can see on the image to the right, there is the Crescent Duck Farm to the south of the site. So the area that I showed in this picture, this area actually only captures about 5.6 acres of stormwater runoff from the area upland of this area. So these are some images from on the ground. So to your left, you can see there is an outfall pipe. That's a 24-inch reinforced concrete outfall pipe that flows under 25 into this freshwater wetland slash upland area. It's heavily choked with Phragmites, as you can see right now, and sedimented. And Drew has highlighted the issues in this area, that there's a lot of flooding that occurs due to the amount of stormwater runoff that flows into this area from that outfall pipe from the upland areas. We are trying to come up with a plan to better treat that stormwater, reduce the sedimentation, and improve the habitat in this area.
Where does the pipe originate?
I believe it
Drew, do you know where the pipe originates?
originates.
Here you have
Okay,
the-
so at the top of the drainage area, which is up on, Church, I believe.
Church.
Well, okay.
There's a whole bunch of leaking structures that are piped together, and the pipe goes all the way down Church Lane and then runs into several catch basins, at the corner of Church and 25. And then the pipe goes underneath the road by the old post office and discharges, at the site.
Thank you.
Okay, so as I said, we worked with a consultant, Land Use Ecological Services, to come up with a plan on what we would do to improve this site. And in front of you, you do have a printed out version of this conceptual design plan, and it's also on the screen. So the conceptual design plan includes the construction of a wetland that would have 200,000 square feet of meandering low and high marsh, 33,000 square feet of shrub swamp, a deep water forebay, which you can see to your left, right where the concrete outfall pipe now flows into this area. And that would serve the purpose to allow the stormwater to flow into the area, the sediment to settle, and then allow the water to then flow through that system. So that will reduce the amount of sedimentation that occurs right now on the existing site. So that water will flow through that system, and then there are 2 more micro pools down on the southern end of the meandering path there. There will be a trash collector or a trash filter before that water then goes under a berm and then goes on its way south down through the rest of Meeting House Creek system. So that is essentially the design. We have incorporated, in the event of a storm event or a 100-year storm event, that this site will be able to stand up to that amount of water that would flow into this area. And the wetland area will actually increase from the existing 1 acre to 1.2 acres of wetland at the site. Does anyone have any questions on the drawing or anything that I just mentioned? No? Okay. And this is just a cross-sectional view of that conceptual design. So nothing will be done to the existing 24-inch pipe that flows into the area, but the wetland will be constructed downstream of that. So there will be some maintenance involved in this project. There will be an operation and maintenance plan that will be developed by the engineering firm that we are going to be hiring. So as I said, there will be a trash collector on the southern side of that meandering water body, so that will need to be cleaned. And also the forebay, the deep pool in the northern end, right after the outfall, that will need to be cleaned out when it gets to about 50% capacity. And there may need to be some Phragmites control just to maintain a healthy balance, a healthy ecosystem in this new constructed wetland.
Will there be any added vegetation
Yes.
to the area?
Yes, yes. So as I said, there's going to be a low and high marsh incorporated into this design, so that will include some plantings. So according to the conceptual design, they've kind of priced out what they anticipate the costs of the engineering design, the full engineering design, and then the construction costs. So we anticipate this project to cost around $154,000 for design, and then around $530,000 for construction. And I do want to note that Peconic Estuary Program has secured funding for the engineering design at this time. So we are working with Drew. We are now presenting this project to you to give it, your blessing to move it forward. And once we do have all the things in place, we will be advertising this project for engineering design to then hire a engineering consulting company to then do the design. Once we have the design, we are anticipating that this project will be very eligible for state funding to then pay for the construction of the actual project.
Great.
Now you
Special.
And along with the engineering design, that hired contractor would be responsible for obtaining any necessary permits for the project to go forward. So these are the permits that we anticipate being needed for the project to move forward. And this is a timetable that we anticipate this project moving forward on. So we're looking to advertise the RFP for the engineering design in February. We will then be contracting with a selected contractor, and the engineering design will be developed over the next year. We're hoping, if we do obtain funding for this project for construction, which Peconic Estuary Program and the town would work together on, that we could start construction in 2023. And I think that's my last slide, yes. So does anyone have any questions on the project or concerns or?
What is riprap?
Riprap is just stone,
Large,
rocks.
large stone for energy dissipation and an outlet.
And it
So-
captures the silt.
So you're looking to start and complete in 2023, the construction part?
Yeah, yeah, so construction would probably start and complete 2023.
Okay.
This is a really unique project in that the existing wetlands, by DEC rule, typically isn't allowed to be disturbed regardless of what shape it's in. So we were able to remove it and turn it hopefully into something that's productive. You have to dig all the Phragmites out and then treat it, and then we can plant. And then, as Sarah said, with O&M, you have to occasionally treat the Phragmites to keep it from coming back.
Kind of like bamboo, the way
Yeah.
they shoot up.
Yeah, no,
And once you start getting the cleaner water running into the pond and into the creek, then it'll improve the water quality as well. So that's the end goal, and it looks like
That's the end goal.
great
and
concept.
And a functioning wetland, hopefully you won't need as much Phragmites removal over time once it does what it's supposed to be doing.
This watershed includes the sod farms that are off of Upper Church Lane, so they get a ton of sediment in the wintertime when there's not that much, the cover is minimal.
Nobody really wants.
So that should help quell that a little bit.
Great project.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is exciting.
It is to see that. Okay, moving forward, there are no resolutions today. Can I have a motion and a second to go into executive session?
So moved?
Yeah, can I amend the executive session agenda to include a personnel discussion for IT, seeing as we just got a letter of resignation from our top IT person, that we should be looking to get somebody in there for training sooner than later, so
Sure.
I would like to discuss that in executive session.
Okay, we have 4 matters of concerning personnel, now we have a 5th. Matters concerning hiring of a personnel, matters concerning change of status of employment for an intern, matter surrounding change in status of an employee, and that's it.
And
Right, all
hiring
in
of an
favor?
employee,
Aye.
right?
Yes.
Aye.
And then,
All opposed? So moved.
thanks.